Let's talk about the local election results in England, and also we'll mention the Welsh Senedd results and the Scottish Parliament results as well, because it's been pretty interesting. Now, going into these elections, I was worried that Reform would perform well, and let's face it, they did. I was hopeful that the Greens would perform well, and let's face it, they did. And it was largely predicted that this would be a big failure for the two main parties, particularly the Labour Party and the Conservative Party, and let's face it, it was. But there were some glimmers of hope in amongst the worry. As many of you know, I stood as a candidate where I live for Lake South. So Lake South on the Isle of Wight, I was able to get the Green share up, which I'm really happy with, and made the Greens the highest scoring progressive party. But our seat was run by Reform. Reform actually took 19 of our councils out of 39 on the island, so didn't quite get a majority. I found myself cheering when the Conservatives won Ventnor, which was quite an interesting experience I never thought I would have. But then at the same time, we've got to ask ourselves why that is happening. And Reform UK worked really hard to turn the vote out on the island, and they did connect with a lot of people. And there's a lot of emotion that they're tapping into, where people are feeling lost, they're feeling poor, and they're feeling disenfranchised. And that's because they are poor. They are disenfranchised. They're seeing the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. The issue is, I would argue, that they're then pointing the blame in the wrong place. They're pointing the blame at migrants, at foreigners or trans people or whoever, rather than actually at the mega rich, who are the ones bankrolling Reform UK, which is the irony of it all. But that picture of Reform doing really well was reflected across the UK really, but particularly in England. They won about 1,400 seats, which was a huge increase. Their share of seats overall in England remains really low. Obviously not all seats were elected all the time. Labour is still the biggest council holder, for example, but it was a huge swing towards Reform. Interestingly, their vote share actually dropped by 4%. So if you look at the 25 elections and project a vote share based off those, they were at about 32%. They've dropped 28%. So that is the first chink of hope in an otherwise gloomy story. The second chink of hope is that the Greens actually went up 8% or 7%, I think, when the vote share. So in 2025, they were on 11% projected vote share. And now in 26, they have gone up to 18%, which is hugely reassuring. And again, that was mirrored here on the Isle of Wight, where although we retained our two Green seats, we came second 4 seats and third in 11 seats. And actually, our vote share went up pretty consistently across the island, which is something we are seeing across England. So that was reassuring. Now, when we look to Wales and look at the Senedd, Plaid Cymru outperformed Reform, which is fantastic, but it is the biggest vote share the right have ever gained in Welsh elections. So it's still not to be underestimated. However, Reform did not perform as well as they'd hoped to, and Plaid Cymru smashed it. And we also saw 2 Green Senedd seats, which is absolutely fantastic from a Green perspective. So still short of that overall majority, but when you take Plaid and the Greens and a couple of Labour, you do start to get a working majority there. Now in Scotland, the SNP did really well. They dropped a couple and they were just shy of a majority. But we saw Reform really struggling to break through in Scotland, which is great. They did win seats, but SNP won the most seats. And actually, when you put the Scottish Greens and SNP together, you've got a working majority, a left-wing pro-independence majority. So we saw Reform rise much bigger in England, which isn't shocking because they're an English nationalist party. But we actually saw the Greens pick up seats for the first time ever in Wales and record break in Scottish Parliament as well. We also saw the Greens win 2 mayoral seats in London, which is absolutely huge and fantastic. Now, the Greens, in terms of seats, like I said, Reform won about 1,400, but the Greens won over 400 seats as well. Now, this is huge. This is the biggest ever result for the Greens that we've seen in any form of elections across the UK. So there's lots of promising stuff there. And this is considering we had a sustained attack on the Greens for about a week before the elections as well. And we're also realising just now, after the elections, funnily enough, all the stories about Reform's racist candidates and Farage's dodgy dealings and 5 million donations are only coming out now afterwards. So despite the media ferociously going for the Greens, we still performed really, really well. So what does this mean? This does mean that there are more Reform councils this side of the local elections than there were before. Many like me will see that as a negative thing and will see that as a worrying thing. We've only got to wait and see what happens. Some are saying that it's quite likely we'll see by-elections. We've actually already had Reform councillors be sacked and suspended. We had one quit and go on holiday because he didn't actually want to win. We've seen one go away who said the Holocaust was a hoax. We've seen one Reform councillor who said Nigerians should be melted down to fill potholes has been sacked. So we're starting to see loads being sacked, suspended or quitting already, as to be expected, and presumably that will end up being more and more as time goes on. So we'll have to watch this space. But it's really important because councils do a really important job. You know, they safeguard our money, they look at our social care, they look at our transport and infrastructure. So hopefully there'll be a lot of scrutiny on there. When there are mistakes, it will be noticed and people might start to realise that Reform are not the answer. We've also got to think of those hard-working left-wing independents and Greens who are going to have a really hard time now working in councils with possibly antagonistic, Reform majorities or clusters of people. However, time will have to tell. So I guess my take-home message is this was a good night for Reform, but actually they did not do as well as they wanted to. It was also a good night for the Greens, who are now setting themselves up in a really strong position and showing that they're maintaining that momentum that they gained in the Gorton and Denton by-election election, for example. So that was really reassuring, and it was devastating for Labour. They've just lost so many councils, so many to the Greens. We look at places like Lambeth, Hackney, Haringey, really traditional Labour bases, and they've just lost their support. The councils have gone green, which is a huge win for the Greens, but I think it's also a testament just to left-wing politics and socialism, because Labour have tried to sell that out. They've sold the people out, and people are remembering, and people aren't stupid. They're going to vote for what they actually want, which is socialism and left-wing governments, which is now the Greens. And obviously the Conservatives, their vote share collapsed. They lost loads of seats. So a huge loss for the two big parties, and the Lib Dems picked up about 150 seats as well. So that was really, really good for them, but not the huge breakthrough you'd expect to see. That's good, but not enough that they're ever going to, I think, shape British politics further than they already do by being a significant voting bloc. So that's my take home of the local elections. Those are my thoughts. I'm going to write it up and pop it in an article in the link below as well in the summary. If you've got any questions, comment them and ask them. Let's talk, because this is really interesting time. This is about learning. From a personal perspective, I really enjoyed standing. It was a really interesting experience. I enjoyed meeting the other candidates, actually. It was really nice. All the candidates in my ward, we got on and supported each other, which was really nice. And it was really interesting getting out and just speaking to people about politics. So a really positive experience for me, and I'm looking forward to potentially getting the opportunity to explore it again with local politics. But let's see. Yeah, if you enjoy this video, please do subscribe. It helps me out a lot. If you can subscribe to my Substack as well, that would be fantastic. Thank you.